This meeting to order. It is April 15th, 2024, and it is currently 6:03. And what a warm, sunny evening. I hear we're supposed to get a storm later this week, so I'm kind of soaking it all in. So maybe we can have a quick meeting and soak it in some more. Ms. Wood, would you do the call?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Norris?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz?
Here.
Dr. Shank?
Here.
Here. Can I lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to jump right into our meeting tonight, and we're going to start with B1. Oh, please, thank you. See, I'm already jumping ahead of myself. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'd like to,
Go ahead.
Ms. Church, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Aye. And now we will move into B1 to consider approved selection of new superintendent. And I'll just give everybody a quick update. Following a nationwide search culminating in finalist interviews with 4 of our qualified candidates, the Lewis Palmer School Board of Education is now ready to vote on our finalists, and the process of selecting a new superintendent began in December after Casey Summers announced he'd resign effective March 31st. Through that point, the board has engaged in multiple public engagement opportunities, soliciting more than 1,000 responses to a community through a survey, conducted a public forum guided by the Candidate Forum Advisory Committee, which culminated in a strength survey that generated nearly 200 in-depth responses, which then aided us in the board in our decision after we conducted our board interviews. So I want to thank our community and our board and all of our staff through that process. And so I would like to, Mr. Norris, would you read the resolution?
Yeah, I sure will. Thank you. Resolution appointing finalist as superintendent of Lewis Palmer District 38. Whereas the Board of Education has considered the candidates included in the district's list of finalists for the position of superintendent, and whereas the Board of Education has selected a finalist to appoint a superintendent, and whereas the board declared its finalist at least 14 days before the Board of Education makes this appointment pursuant to Colorado Rev Statute 24-6-402, subparagraph 3.5. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lewis Palmer District 38 that Dr. Stacy Dattery is hereby appointed to the position of superintendent for Lewis Palmer District 38, subject to final contract approval.
Can I get a motion?
Second.
We have to have a motion first.
It's got to be formal, right?
Yes, it has to be formal.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, I make a motion to approve the resolution for the appointment of Dr. Stacy Dattery as superintendent of schools for Lewis Palmer School District 38, subject to final contract approval.
Oh,
Now I second.
Okay. Ms. Wood, is there a discussion? No? Okay, Ms. Wood, would you take the vote?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And I just want to make a quick statement and say that Dr. Dattery comes to District 38 with 21 years of administrative experience and 29 years of experience in the field of education. And currently she serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Academic Achievement and Elementary K-8 School Leadership in Greeley-Evansweld County School District 6, where she has been employed since 2005. And I just also want to say that we, as a board, look forward to working with Dr. Dattery, and she stood out through this incredibly competitive process due to her high qualities of demonstrated leadership that she brings to the table. She comes with a similar community and is from a similar community, and she's committed to becoming immersed in ours. Her energy and enthusiasm for student-focused initiatives is invigorating, and she brings classroom and school-based experience with her and will, I'm sure, embody the District 38 vision of elevating the futures of every student every day. But importantly, she doesn't ask her people to do the impossible. She will be a good captain at the helm of our already successful ship. And still, I just want to remind everybody that we realize we have room to grow and we will not rest on our laurels. And so I personally am looking forward to leaning into the strategic plan and thinking outside the box. And while we have challenges to tackle, Dr. Dattery recognizes that we must approach all of this through the lens of serving our students and partnering with our parents. And then I finally want to say, for everybody in our community of staff, students, families, and friends, what this process showed was the value of hearing all voices. Anybody who was engaged in the process had an equal voice at the table through this process. And we believe that each of these key groups had a voice in determining this decision. And from the board's perspective, this was not an easy decision. And those who interviewed brought incredible strengths to the table. And at the end of this process, we are confident that this decision, and with our team in place, that we have the ability to move forward and elevate our district even higher and further. So Dr. Dattery is here with us tonight. Would you like to say a few words to your community?
Thank you so much, President Upchurch, for those very kind words. Members of the board, I appreciate all of what you just said. I am so honored and so grateful for the opportunity to come and serve as your next superintendent. As you just outlined, you know, I have some years of experience, right? And with 21 years of administrative experience, first, you know, being a teacher, and then a school leader, and then in all the experiences that I've had, it's just really led me to be able to say this, I want to come here and serve in this capacity with all of you as your next superintendent. As I was looking at all of the great and amazing work that you've been doing, I think about the things that I can bring to the table, the things that I have learned along the way that are just going to be able to, I think, as you were saying, just mesh and really continue with that legacy that you've already created, but then to say, what is it that is our next level of work? How can we really achieve those things that are outlined in our strategic plan and make sure that they're a reality for our students here in D38? So I truly look forward to working alongside all of you as a Board of Education. I look forward to working alongside our teachers and our school leaders, all of our staff members, and our community. Thank you for investing and saying yes and knowing that this Board of Education was making one of the most important decisions. And so I thank you, and I'm very honored and grateful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll shake your hand. Oh, yes, sure. How about that? Dr. Dattery will be joining our team come July. And so, with that, and welcome, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is staff farewell recognition. And that is, we have a staff member that we are sad to see departing. And so, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wetstein first to say our farewell to Mr. Mark Belcher.
Okay, everyone, it is my honor to share our gratitude for Mr. Mark Belcher, who has served our district as Director of Communication for the past 3 years. Mark, your expertise, your expert guidance, constant positivity, and professionalism has helped us continue to raise the bar in how we present Lewis Palmer School District. When your colleagues think of you and your contributions to D38, several key qualities immediately come to mind. Proactive, positive, and always prepared, you embody the spirit of forward-thinking leadership. No matter the challenge we faced, you stood ready with a response, a solution, and a smile, uplifting countless celebrations and navigating the most challenging situations with unwavering positivity. Your commitment to excellence extends beyond just mere words. It permeates every aspect of your work, from the stylistic nuances of our brand to the meticulous attention to detail in your keen design and imagery. You ensured that our message was not just conveyed, but crafted with creativity, consistency, and the utmost care. Through your efforts, D38's vision, mission, and values were not just words on paper, but lived principles strategically aligned and deployed to propel us towards our goals. Mark, you have the ability to consolidate a myriad of complex initiatives and situations into a coherent narrative. You have crafted messages that resonate with each of our audiences, messages that the public and our staff have grown accustomed to expecting from us. Your unique capacity to distill complexity into clarity has been instrumental in shaping D38's public perception and reputation. As we bid you farewell as our Director of Communication, we do so with deep gratitude for your dedication, leadership, and unwavering commitment to our success. You have truly elevated us. We will miss working with you, and we wish you much happiness and success in your new position as Chief Communications Officer. District 20 is lucky to have you.
Okay, Mark, you have to come forward. We have a gift for you. And I'm going to read mine while the rest of my fellow board members present you with your gift. And I will say that Amber and I did not coordinate our words, but it's interesting how similar our thoughts are. So I'm going to read mine while you guys can present to Mr. Belcher. Go right. Mark, thank you for the impact you have made here in D38. Your continuous engagement has indeed elevated our students, our staff, and our community. Your dedication and passion to lean in, listen, and communicate has left our school system better than when you found it. The pride you have for D38 shows on your face. As one person, you have worked tirelessly with camera or computer in hand, from early in the mornings till late at night, on weekends, holidays, snow days, and activities within our buildings, our Tri-Lakes community, and beyond. You are always present and ready, whether it is publishing different avenues of updates, publishing our strategic vision, mission, portrait of a graduate, an educator, answering requests and inquiries, meeting with community members, and coordinating engagement opportunities, and you do it with integrity. So, sir, we will miss your leadership, your smiles, and your can-do attitude. We will miss you, but also congratulations on this next step in your career path and in life. And also, we do expect family Christmas cards and updates on that beautiful baby boy. Thank you, Mark.
Can we do an executive team picture? Good, gotta switch that way.
Since you was
Make sure the exit sign's right off my head.
obviously carrying a lot of this job.
But wait, there's more. We also have another staff recognition. The Board of Education would like to recognize Chief Business Officer Brett Ridgway for his leadership in the development and passage of Senate Bill 24-17 regarding education funding. And Governor Polis signed this bill into law on April 4th, 2024. And for more information, you can follow the Colorado General Assembly website. Do you want to explain SB 24, sir? I can explain it, but I think you should.
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
I'm happy to explain.
We also want to say thank you to, where is she? There she is. There's Amy Atwood as well for your lobbyist work too. It was a true team effort.
Yep.
Would you want to share?
Maybe we do the gift and I'll explain it as we're presenting the gift. Is that okay?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Can I trouble the two of you to come up to the front, please? So, Mr. Ridgway, while you may think these flowers are for you, I'm sorry they're not. Yes. Yeah, you have plenty to worry about. This is for Miss Athens. And then a couple things here, if I may. House Bill 17, which was nearly passed unanimously by both the Senate and the House of Representatives in the state of Colorado legislature, does something incredibly simple that no one had thought about until Mr. Ridgway came up with it. The essence of what the bill does is it migrates money that school districts had to save in reserves or savings accounts to cover a dip in cash flow. Small businesses would call this a swing loan. And it migrates that money back into the hands of the students and the districts so they can actually use it as it was intended for the benefit of the students, instead of covering a swing loan because of cash flow. The net of it is the state passed the law to smooth out the cash flow through the fiscal year so that the districts don't have to save the money for that trough or dip. The impact of and the magnitude of it is significant. In our particular district alone, it frees up over $8 million of cash that we can use as early as July 1st for the benefit of our students, staff, and our community. That's nothing compared to the impact this bill has made upon the state's children. According to the Department of Education, there's roughly 881 children in our K through 12 public schools in this state. This bill will impact in a positive manner over 600,000 of those 800,000 students. That's big. It's in excess of $600 million that we're freeing up to go right where it's supposed to go in the first place. The most important thing here is that through the work of Mr. Ridgway and Ms. Atwood, we got politicians from both sides of the aisle to put their community, their country, and their children ahead of partisan politics. And isn't it amazing what can happen in a short window of time when that takes place? So to both of you, you have done yo people's work in getting this done quickly and effectively and efficiently. So Ms. Atwood, we have a thank you note for you. Mr. Ridgway, we have a plaque for you that has a lot of big words with multiple syllables that will be very challenging for me to read, but I will make an attempt with my public school education. In recognition of your significant achievement with the passage of Colorado State Bill 24-17, the Lewis Palmer School District Board of Education is grateful for your efforts that resulted in excess of $660 million of funding, which is immediately available for the school children in the state of Colorado. Your expertise and measured actions led to this near unanimous passage. This work, in addition to your normal duties, clearly meets our vision of elevating the futures of every student and doing it every single day. We're grateful for what you achieved.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Okay, moving along to C3. We would also like to recognize that we have our student liaisons in the house at the table. Mr. Schwartz is going to introduce Rhett and
Kenna
what?
and Kenna.
I thought you said Kevin. I'm like, no, it's Kenna. Yes, Rhett and Kenna.
So we're honored to have two representative from Palmer Ridge High School with us today. Start with Kenna Drake. Kenna is the Stuco person in charge of philanthropy. So if anybody has some extra cash, Palmer Ridge could use it. And she's done yeoman's work in the Make-A-Wish project, which they will explain a little bit more about. And I don't want to steal all their thunder. And she's currently a junior at Palmer Ridge. Red Armstrong is the senior class vice president, also was on the runner-up football team as a kicker, and has an appointment to our United States Air Force Academy, class of 2029. And thank you for your commitment to our country. It matters. And welcome, and if you have any questions, feel free to let us know.
Hello. First off, I'd like to thank you for the introduction and for having us here. As he has just mentioned, I'm in charge of our philanthropy chair for Palmer Student Council this year, meaning I was in charge of our Harvest of Love and Make-A-Wish. Today I'm here to talk about our Make-A-Wish week and how it went. This year we had a 4-year-old little girl named Marin who was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and her wish was to go to Disney World. So we hosted about 3 to 4 events during our week to help raise money to achieve her wish. Unfortunately, we had two snow days during our week, so we had to postpone one of them. But I would like to proudly announce that after all of our funding with all of our students and events, we helped raise $21,000 to go to Make-A-Wish, Colorado to help achieve dreams like Marin's. So,
Congratulations.
My turn. Good evening. So I'm going to kind of outline what the rest of our year looks like, as well as go over what we did for our prom. For prom, we have kind of like a week for prom of like spirit days, and we have an assembly at the end of the week. The assembly was super fun, and at our assembly for prom, we had our students who are running for office speak in front of the student body. So I'm one of those people. Ken is also one of those people. I'm running for vice president. She's running for president, which is kind of ironic. But that was a super cool experience for me, and I know it was pretty awesome for every single one of us. At the prom dance we had at Boot Barn Hall, and I heard it was super awesome. I was not able to make it, unfortunately. Then our after prom, which was hosted at the school, it was my favorite thing I've probably ever been to. That was a school sanctioned event. It was super cool, put on by the parents. If you can kind of imagine with me, it's a spooky themed event. So like everything was decorated kind of like Halloweenish, and there was arcade games everywhere, inflatables. There was like spray paint tattoo artists and lots of food, which was my favorite part. And it was just a really good night. Bouncing over to what we do for our student council elections, we did a primary for the first time we have in our school history. So essentially, after that assembly for prom week, the students were able to vote for 2 sets of candidates to send through the primary. So 4 total students made it through the primary. Both of us made it through the primary, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
And then, thank you. And so next week is our like running week, essentially. So you kind of campaign as much as possible in the school with flyers and whatever you can do with that. And there's a $20 budget on our campaign. So whether you want to use that for food or whatever you need to convince people to vote for you. I used food last year. It worked pretty well. And then lastly, I'd like to touch on how we bring in new members. And it's a pretty formative part of the year for us doing that. We like to take about 10 from each class to make 40 total students in our class. So freshmen have the opportunity to come in and interview with us as student council executives during the summer. So they will come in, usually early summer, or there's another time window in late summer, and we will take 10 total 8th graders to fill those spots, as well as some current students who haven't joined student council yet can also interview with us. It's a pretty cool process. I joined after my sophomore year, so I'm glad that they let me in like that, and I look forward to seeing who shows up to interview with us.
Excellent. Thank you for the update.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Our next item is C4, public comments. Ms. Wood. So at this time, in accordance with policy BEDH, the board will hear comments from members of the public who have signed up to speak. It is our goal as board to continuously listen and improve, and we invite members of our community to speak publicly for a total of 30 minutes. Speakers will be allotted up to 3 minutes each, and time may be divided equally if more than 10 individuals wish to speak. Groups with a united concern may be asked to appoint a spokesperson. The Board of Education does not expressly or individually respond to public comments, and to this point, comments expressed do not represent the position or opinion of the Board of Education of D38. And finally, we ask that you keep comments shared appropriate for our PK through 12 audience and respectful at all times. Should you have an issue with staff members that you would like to address, please consider sharing these criticisms and concerns with the superintendent, who is responsible for supervising all staff and involving the board as necessary. And today we have one sign up, and that is Mr. Stephen Phillips. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thanks to the board and everybody for what you do. We appreciate it. Dr. Dattery, congratulations to you. About 5 or 6 years ago, I came and spoke to the board and encouraged them strongly that we were seeing some dynamics in the graduation of educators from our colleges and universities in Colorado and across the country. Those numbers were diminishing significantly, and so our pool of teachers was significantly diminishing. And so I strongly encouraged the board to consider increasing the pay, and thankfully you guys have been able to do that, and we really appreciate that. Now we have 2 other interesting dynamics that I'd like to suggest that you be mindful of. One of them involves one of my undergraduate degrees is in social science, and I'm a little bit nerdy, even I never got into that area professionally. A little nerdy in tracking statistics and things, societal trajectories and directions. Right now, teacher satisfaction, I'm not going to speak to D38, but more broadly across our country. And I would encourage you, if you get a chance, Pew Research, whom I consider to be a very reliable source in their research and studies, came out with one just March of this year. And 83% of the teachers who were surveyed consider their job far more complicated, far more difficult, and a variety of aspects. And I'll let you read the entire study. 83%. Much more difficult than it was 5 years ago. So it's been a continuum that went through what we all experienced through COVID, and it continued. Looking ahead, only 20% of teachers expected things to improve. Now, that's a very interesting dynamic, and it's something that, if I could suggest, maybe the board might consider sending something to the teachers, asking them, how are you guys doing? And my wife and I, Leah Phillips, and I have lived in this district for 24 years. We're very strong supporters of education. We both believe in education, and we strongly want our students to have the very best opportunities they have in their education. As it's been mentioned several times, we want to elevate everything, right? So I would encourage you to maybe consider looking at how the teachers are doing. I will tell you, for those of you who don't know, my wife is a high school math teacher at Palmer Ridge. She's one of my heroes. I think she does an exceptional job as an educator. And we talk at some length about how things are going and how does education look. Can I have
Just
one more
wrap it
minute?
up. Yep, just wrap it up. I can't give you a minute, but just.
The second thing involves where students are right now as far as numbers. There's been a 108% increase in homeschoolers since 2018, diminishing number of students in the district across the nation. That means a financial issue that has to be of great concern for us moving ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving along, we have item C5. We have board member comments. Mr. Brown?
I just want to say congratulations to Mark. Wish we could have kept you as one of our best kept secrets, but of course they were going to find out about you, and I'm not surprised they wanted to snatch you up. And Ms. Sattery, I'm sorry we weren't here to welcome you in before the meeting, but congratulations.
Mr. Schwartz?
Also, congratulations to Mark. We'll miss you. Big shoes to fill, but we will do our best to find the right fit. Welcome, Dr. Dattery. Lots of fun stuff to do and a little bit of hard work, but you're up for the task. Also, the board, thank you to the board for a tireless work ethic during the entire superintendent interview process. I wish that Walt Cooper was here with us. He is the consultant we hired. I think if I multiplied what we're paying him by the amount of hours, we got him down to about $18 to $20 an hour. He did phenomenal work managing and facilitating our team as well as the candidates, which really is an art form, and it requires significant knowledge of the education process and then working with boards who have our own sets of egos and opinions and experiences, and bringing that all together to a quality, highly regulated process. One of my particular concerns was that we didn't pick the best candidate of the group, but we picked the right candidate for our district. And the board would likely tell you, if you caught them in an honest moment, I probably said too many times, we don't have to pick anybody. If we don't find the right person, we punt and we go through this again. And it turned out we ended up with 4 highly qualified candidates, all of which could frankly do the job and do it well. And we believe we've made the right decision for this point in time. But 2 of those candidates and finalists are here, and I want to acknowledge you both did terrific work, and you earned the right to be where you were in that finalist pool. So thank you both for what you continue to do for us, and more importantly, for the kids of the community, because that's why we're all here. Thank you.
Dr. Schenk?
As a new member of the board, I just was blown away by our process with Walt, with each other. You read all over the country about how boards of education are contentious and political, and we didn't have any of that. I am learning from this very amazing group of people, from our leadership team, what the real meaning of listening and consensus is. And better late than never. I'm not exactly young, but I've been in institutions that were pretty contentious. What I saw here is that we very much wanted to listen to each other and do the absolute best we could for our community. And I'm just really grateful as a new member that you guys are teaching me things that I need to know. Appreciate it very much.
What's your name? Mr. Mr. Norris.
Thanks. Yeah, Dr. Dattery, thank you so much for joining us here today. For the folks up here, I had a conversation with her briefly just a few minutes ago, and I told her that she's not going to have to worry about traffic going home because you usually let us out at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I'm really excited about the future. I'm really excited to see where you take this ship, and I feel really good about it. I feel really good about the board, about the admin, the leadership, the executive leadership. I think we're really in a great position. Mark, you made a great choice. You made a good decision for your family. For somebody that's swapped companies as many times as I have, any kind of reservations or angst you may have about going into your new role, you shouldn't. You do exceptionally well in your job, and you'll do good down there in wherever you're going. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Those are all very well-spoken words. I also want to say thank you again to our student representatives for coming. We swap, for everybody that doesn't know, we swap with our different schools with our student representation, and we continue to improve and look at ways we can include more students going into next school year. So thank you. And there's less than a month left for school, so just a little bit more. Dr. Dattery, I also want to say welcome to the team. And Mark, we will miss you, sir. I also, in addition to our own announcement of our superintendent, I want to give a shout out to congratulate Mr. Colin Vinchettel, who has been named as the new CEO for Monument Academy. So lots of things happening here in D38. And it's a busy time of year. And again, I want to reiterate that we want to continue to lean in and build strong relationships in our community and in all of our schools while we continue to be focused on our strategic plan and our goals. And I know there's some things I'm going to say, Amber, that you also have, but I do want to personally share my appreciation for Deputy Wheat and his service to our district and our students and our staff. And he will be missed. And the relationships that he built is a testament to the strength and power of community and community police work. So we congratulate him on his next endeavor with the sheriff's office. And I also want to acknowledge, and I was thinking about this and I was reflecting on who are we as a school district as we were looking and searching for our superintendent. And what I kept coming back to for some reason was on my mind is I want to personally share my acknowledge the kindness and personally acknowledge the stewardship that our community has with our schools, from both of our high schools making a wish foundations, fundraisers, to Care Portal, if anybody's not familiar with that, to the Easter Baskets, Tri-Lakes Cares, Monumental Impact, Monument Warriors, the D38 Foundation, Adopt D38. There's so much generosity in this district that we take care of each other and our students and our staff and our schools. And I just want to make sure that we remember all of the kind things we do to each other, do for each other and for our students and staff. And I invite our community to find ways, speaking of, to recognize and support our teachers and staff during Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. Students, it's May 6th through the 10th. And from our neighborhood schools to Monument Academy, there's so much to celebrate. So I just want to invite our community to lean in and honor and celebrate our amazing staff that we have here in our school district. And then I also want to do a quick reminder that our Allium Day Award Ceremony is next Wednesday, board. I hope you all can join. It's at Lewis Palmer High School Auditorium. It's from 7 to 8, and that's April 24th. And Mr. Rick Frampton will be our presenter, and Mr. Rick Frampton is going to be moving into new roles as well, so we'll be looking to Danielle Holmes as well. We recognized you last month, but I also want to remind everybody that we're looking forward to this one. And then, As I said, graduation is May 18th, and that'll be here before we know it, and our next regular board meeting will be after that. So I want to do a shout out and congratulations to all of our graduates. And I believe actually Monument Academy has its first graduating class this year, doesn't it? Yep. And then other shout outs real quick. Our robotics team did amazing work, and they had a lot of grit and challenges that they overcame, and it was amazing to see them work so hard, and we'll celebrate them soon at our upcoming board meeting. Tomorrow is a Chamber of Commerce after hours for my fellow board members at Lolly's, and our all-district choir is this Wednesday, and international dinner is this Thursday, which is the 18th at Lewis Palmer High School, and if you've never been, it's pretty amazing. It's very casual. It's a time to just enjoy and celebrate and mingle with each other, and there's a lot of good food. So I just want to remind everybody of that. And then that's it. Again, I know that we celebrated Mr. Ridgway, and I guess Ms. Atwood has already had to leave. But I also want to say that your voices and our voices actually do matter, and we do have a voice at the table. And we actually were able to affect several pieces of legislation this year with a focus on local control. And while there's still a few weeks left of the session, and some bills are set to affect us, we were able to stop some bills, we were able to help get some bills passed, and we were able to help amend some bills. So just a reminder that our voices do matter, and please continue to advocate for our students and our families and our staff and our local community. And that's all I have, Ms. Wetstein.
Okay, you touched on some of it, but not all of it. So it's a good segue. All right, good evening, everyone. We always like to begin the superintendent's update grounding in our vision, mission, values, and strategic priorities. And as you've heard a lot already this evening, we are working to elevate the futures of every student every day. And as Ms. Upchurch mentioned, we are saying goodbye to the beloved school resource officer at Lewis Palmer High School, but we wish Deputy Wheat all the best as he assumes his new position as sergeant. Student excellence on display. For those who didn't have a chance, we want to say kudos and thank you to the wonderful students who moderated the Superintendent Candidate Forum. Aubrey Mall, Taylor Brooks, and Lily Poteet. They didn't just represent D38 well, they also represented their schools as outstanding students with incredibly bright futures. And LPMS rolled out the red carpet for 6th graders this past week. It was an exciting opportunity for them to explore the halls, classrooms, and all the vibrant offerings that Lewis Palmer Middle School has to offer. A huge thank you to the staff and our 8th grade ambassadors for organizing such an informative and engaging visit. We look forward to welcoming all of the new Patriots onto our campus next fall. Our Homeschool Enrichment Academy transported guests back in time in Grace Best Gymnasium with colorful displays from throughout history. The students performed admirably, demonstrating their knowledge of history, including the students pictured here that were showcasing their expertise as the Wright brothers. This event was part of the Homeschool Enrichment Academy Spring Showcase, which included various activities to engage families and for students to demonstrate their learning. And as many of you know, eclipse fever hit D38 last week. Students at Prairie Winds that you see pictured here enjoyed donning their eclipse glasses and gazing at the moon blocked out, as the moon blocked out about 65% of the sun. And we look forward to the next eclipse, which will pass over Colorado Springs in totality in 2045.
I'm going to be old.
Some upcoming performances that you will not want to miss. We have our high school spring plays. Palmer Ridge High School will be presenting this weekend, Almost Maine, and Lewis Palmer High School will be presenting Mary Poppins next week. And Lewis Palmer Middle School, Palmer Ridge High School, and Lewis Palmer High School choirs all recently participated in the CHASA large group vocal musical festivals and showed out. Lewis Palmer Middle School earned a score of 1 or superior. Lewis Palmer High School mixed choir earned a score of 2 or excellent. Treble voices earned a score of 1 or superior. Palmer Ridge High School chamber singers earned a score of 2 excellent, and women's ensemble earned a score of 2 excellent. And finally, spring sports are well underway, so don't forget to attend a game before the year is over. Ms. Upchurch spoke about our Aliorum Day Awards, which will be on April 24th at Lewis Palmer High School at 7 p.m. It is a wonderful, wonderful event. If you haven't experienced it, we highly encourage you to attend. And that concludes my update this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wetstein. Okay, well, Board, do you have any questions for Mrs. Wetstein? No? All right, so we are moving on to Section D of our agenda, Board discussion and action items, and we'll start with D1, curriculum review, and that's the first reading for art and world languages. And Amber, you'll be guiding us through this discussion item.
I will, and if we need to refer to any additional documents, do you want to pull open the slide presentation, which should be the first presentation in Board Docs? Vicki, if you would, please. Should be the very first one, and then if we need to, we can refer to the supporting documents. This presentation is fairly short this evening as we have been navigating through these curriculum reviews throughout the year this year. We're currently bringing forward kindergarten through 8th grade art resources for teachers, as well as world language, which is Spanish, French, and German resources at the board's request. That was actually off cycle and was modified to accommodate a need that we saw within our district. So the policy reference for our curriculum review is IJ, Instructional Resources and Materials. Core instructional programs, including digital text, shall be selected by the appropriate professional staff. However, the final decision on purchase shall rest with the superintendent, subject to the approval of the Board of Education. And I want to highlight that all core instructional programs and books shall be aligned with our academic standards and also support our district educational objectives. Core instructional programs and books shall be available for a 2-week period in a public setting or through a link. Public inspection shall occur prior to the board's first reading, which is this evening, and second reading of the motion to adopt the programs. The public may access, review, and comment on the core instructional programs and books that are being considered in a prescribed manner during this period. And so we have recently done that, and I'll share those results with you in just a moment. I also like to reference our District 38 instructional framework because the curriculum resources that we adopt, which are the materials that our students read and use for learning and that our teachers use for planning, are only one small component of everything that goes into planning for what our students need for learning. Here is the process overview. We did bring together teacher teams of both art teachers separately from our world language teachers. They reviewed the current resources that are in place and they identified areas of need and opportunity. Teachers then reviewed potential new resources and made recommendations for purchase. The public was invited to review both the art resources and the world language resources 2 weeks prior to today. Those were the K-8 Flex Art Curriculum and the Klett High School World Language resources. And again, the Board of Education has the authority to approve or deny proposed purchases of new curricular resources. We did have limited community review this time. We had one parent review of the art curriculum and 2 parent reviews of the world language curriculum. We also spoke about these resources at our recent parent and community advisory committee meeting. All comments that are in detail in your board documents were acceptable or superior in this case. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or provide support with a discussion.
Do my fellow board members have any questions or discussion, thoughts?
Not this time.
No. I just have one question, and this might be a question for Mr. Belcher. I got the email as the parent for the curriculum review. Did that email go out to the community as a whole?
That went out to all community members who opted into our communication, and that's about 600 individuals at this time, and they're growing. So it went out to our families, our staff, and all.
Okay, the communication went out to about 6.
So our family list is about 10,000, our staff is about 1,000, and then our community opt-ins are about 600.
Okay. That was just my question. All right, and then a reminder to the board that we will vote on this curriculum at our May board meeting. Well, if there's no more questions or discussion, that was quick. I like paper mache and chalk and paint. We could do an art demonstration. Okay, our next item is D2. Consider approve proposed academic student fees for the 2024-2025 school year, and that will be presented to us by Chief Business Officer Brett Ridgway. Mr. Ridgway, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm okay, thank you. So the first thing I wanted to emphasize is, we read it in the titles, that this is the academic fees. In the past, we've presented the academic, athletic, and transportation fees all as one. I wanted to separate out the athletic and the transportation. I'll be bringing those to you next month. But we were ready to do the academic fees, and so that's what we have in here today. And so what I'm showing you here, this is a format that you're used to seeing, I believe. Of this list of academic fees for next year, there are only 2 that are changing and 2 that are new. And I wish I'd identified those for you better in the page here. So I apologize for that. Let me go through the changes here first. And that would be in zoology is 1. And so that is going up from $40 to $50 per semester. The weight courses one right below that is only going up in that they're adding a $20 level. Before it's been $10, so it's, there's still a $10 level. There's a $20 level on there as well. And then the new items are for world language. If we and Amber can answer more about hopefully all of these, but certainly that one in particular. And the other one that's new is this campus pathways courses, $25 per semester. So other than that, all the fees are literally the same in terms of definition and amount from this year.
And I'll jump in on the world language and why it's in red font, because those resources have not formally been approved by the board yet. And so when we consider those for approval, and if they are approved, then we will add an option for teachers to provide consumable workbooks for students electing to take world language courses, and that would be an optional fee if teachers choose to provide that paper copy. The proposal that we'll bring to you will give all students digital access without a fee.
Any questions or thoughts? Okay, I do have a couple questions. So I never had the opportunity to do zoology when I was in high school, so that's pretty neat. And then I look at the price tag and I think, okay, if you have a family that can't afford these price tags, how do we address or how do we take care of all of our students?
Well, that's why it's still very important for families in that type of situation to fill out the free and reduced lunch application, because that is the way that we can assist families in these situations by having that formal process that qualifies them for that. Even though lunches are all free, it does provide a lot of other scenarios, particularly in these fee scenarios, to get assistance with those. So the fees can be waived or reduced by 50% either scenario, depending on their situation. But having that process that's an externally driven and valid process to provide us that ability to support the families is really critical for them to still pursue that.
If our funding was different, would we see these fees still be the same? Is this pretty standard throughout school districts across Colorado?
This is pretty standard for school districts across Colorado, especially because you see the focus on this largely is about consumables and things that don't have a multi-year lifespan. And so that's why this is consistent and has been established as an appropriate path for many years.
Thank you, Mr. Ridgway, for answering my questions.
Sure.
Mr. Schwartz?
Thanks. Are there any metrics on the sum total of the revenue generated from these academic student fees?
There are in my financial reporting package.
Page 134?
No, it's not that far back. It's probably at least 133.
Paragraph 2, subparagraph 6C?
Yeah. I can refer to that when we get to the next item, or you want me to pull it up now?
Here's where I'm going with it.
Okay.
Let me back up and ask if the assumption is correct. Is the assumption that by offering a wonderful breadth of different academic topics and subjects, we're in a position where we need to charge some fees to cover consumables? Is that a fair assumption? Or if this generates $37,000 a year and someone or the foundation were to donate $37,000 a year, would we wipe them out? And then the second thing behind it is there any deterrence from students with interest in any of these areas based on these fees that we know about?
They're nodding their head. I'd love to hear their thoughts.
I wouldn't say. I mean, I've taken quite a few of those courses that have fees, especially our Palm Ridge TV program, which is like kind of the news station. And it just gets kind of bothersome asking my parents for money for those things. But I wouldn't say, in at least our household, there's like a deterrence away from that. I do know of some other families that are maybe lower income and that aren't necessarily, it's kind of a bit of a turnoff for some of my friends who are like, oh, but it costs, $50 to take this class. I don't really want to pay that. You know what I mean?
No?
I would agree with that statement. For my family and for my educational journey, I should say, I have not been deterred from these classes, but I also do know some of my friends that have steered away from some just due to the fees. I'm not sure if they're aware of ways to help themselves with that. That is not something I would know with their families, but I think it's definitely something to take into consideration so we can kind of reach everyone across the community.
Thank you.
I might just quickly ask. I know earlier in this meeting we talked about a legislation that brought quite a bit of money to our district. How does that impact these fees?
So that money is
Good question.
not reoccurring.
Okay.
And so in school finance, we try to separate things that will be an expense every year to things that we use the term one time, but they're actually not quite one-time expenses, but they're periodical. They're lumpy versus consistent,
Thank
to
you.
use a technical term. Yeah. So where I'm going with this is just raw curiosity versus fiscal prowess, which is if these fees were eliminated by some type of donation or other fund, what would happen to the participation in these courses? Is there any feel for that? Has it ever been discussed, experimented with? And if what our students are telling us scales out across both the high schools and maybe even in the middle school, is there an underlying deterrence that's preventing us from finding something that may give someone energy and create academic wonderful juices?
We could potentially take a look at comparing electives specifically. As you can see here, these are primarily elective courses.
Right, exactly.
That have no or smaller fees compared to those with higher price tags, and do some analysis as a starting point.
When questions come to us, again, I implore people to fill out the paperwork, because that's how we can help, and we want to help, but we have to have some justification for it, and so we need to go down that process.
Right. My phobia is creating a make-work project. I think you have enough to do during the day, right? And so I don't want to create a make-work project. I just want to attempt to understand the scenario such that if it's generating a deterrence, whether kids' families qualify or not, if we took that deterrence away, what would be the result, and would it be positive? Or is there an equilibrium dynamic that happens anyways? Sorry, go ahead.
I just had a question of pure curiosity. If a family's on the free or reduced lunch program, does D38 end up picking up the cost, or do we get some sort of reimbursement from the state to cover those?
Well, there is reimbursement in terms of at-risk funding, so it's not directly associated with it, and so we receive that funding, and then we also would then provide the support, basically pay the fee on behalf of the participant. Those fees don't go away. Those fees aren't paid by people who do pay fees. It's done out of the general fund to make up for that, and to basically enable that those students to continue doing what they want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
To your question, Ron, to your earlier question, this is a significant amount of money. When you can include all of the, you include the athletic fees as well with this. Last few years, we've been averaging right around $2 million a year, and so if we were not to charge any of that, that would basically take away the entire pay raise that we're talking about for this year, right? So that's basically a 6% cut across the district in compensation. So one of the reasons why we're doing this, why a lot of districts do this, is to try and just balance all the balls, keep all the balls in the air, do as much as we can for compensation, while defraying some of these things that are consumable. They are not year to year. They're not really investments, if you will, as investments in people, might be considered.
It's an art, not a science.
It is.
Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is that going forward, obviously we need to vote on this for this coming school year, but going forward, is there an opportunity to partner with, for us to seek out partnerships or maybe sponsorships or scholarships from businesses or community members to help sponsor students for these fees? Maybe as an opportunity.
Yeah, certain parts of the programs potentially. We want to be careful, right, to make sure there are opportunities that might get introduced from that have some equity, equitable access to them. People. So if we pick just a particular subject area in here, again being as electives, are we are we sacrificing some to benefit others? And so we just want to be careful with that.
Sure. Yeah. That's good, really good discussion. So I appreciate that a lot, and thank you for presenting this to us. And if there's anything we can do to help, or the community can help to remind families to look into applying for assistance as well. And Tri-Lakes Cares will tell you that sometimes when you think you don't qualify, you actually do qualify in this community. So it never hurts to look. Board, what say you?
What's up, Church? I'd like to make a motion to approve the academic student fees for the 2024-2025 school year as presented by the administration.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And Mr. Ridgway, you can stay right where you are comfortably. The next item is D3, financial planning and analysis.
Thank you. I will stay where I am. Let me just have a quick tie back to the earlier presentation, which again I'm very appreciative of, and the recognition, especially for Amy Atwood, because having all the conversations on a day-to-day basis that she represents to us every single day up at the Capitol is really valuable. And it's valuable to us this year with this thing to the tune of $8 million. So if anyone questions the ROI for that, it's kind of $8 million on the top side and her fee on the bottom side, which is about $20,000, right? So a huge benefit for us having that relationship. Yes, Ron?
It's a 500 to 1 return on investment. Even if we amortize her over another 2 years, it's a 250 to 1 return. So in terms of use of public sector funds, this was a good one.
And so to connect to the next step, we've talked a little bit, at least in one-off conversations, maybe even a little bit here, certainly with Staff Collaboration Committee and the Financial Transparency Committee, well, talking about the new School Funding Act that's being talked about and actually has been introduced as a bill now. So that will be heard in House Education Committee on Thursday, and so I will be going up to provide testimony in that committee. I'm kind of basically putting ourselves forward as being an amended position with it, but the amendments that we would like to see are substantial. And so that's the kind of the testimony I'll be providing on that, and hopefully having opportunities to, because the bill sponsors, if you look at the list, it's Mr. Lundin, it's Ms. Puglisi who sponsored our bill, Ms. McCluskey, who sponsored one of my previous bills, and we have a good relationship with him, Ms. Things in the year as well. So I have good access, good capital, relational capital with him. So really looking forward to having that opportunity, and hopefully to have a conversation with them about some tweaks to their bill. So then just getting into the normal FP&A stuff, which always has a lot of information to go through. I want to spend most of our time talking about 24-25 budget information, but real quick, I just wanted to refer us to the usual information that I like to display here, which is the graphical presentations, and what really relates to, again, Senate Bill 2417, is our net cash position pattern by month. And so for the students, especially this pattern where we, because of the way that our revenues come in and our expenses are pretty solid it's pretty equal every month. That means we have a erosion of cash throughout the first half of the year. And so you see this by these bars going down, down, down until we hit the February trough, which is our low point before our spring revenue starts coming in. And what the bill, again, will do is ask the state to change their pattern of payments away from the months where we receive a lot of property tax revenue, which are March, May, and June, and move that to the months when we don't receive property tax revenue. And so what that will end up doing is it'll basically shorten the height of these bars. So instead of having to start the year with near $16 million in the bank to manage that cash flow, we're going to be able to start it much lower at an $8 million range. And so that difference is that one-time opportunity that we'll get to take an investment in hopefully capital items, because that's the best use of one-time fund is for a capital item. Our February low point will stay the same. It's just our starting point will be lower, and so the slope of our lines will be our V will be much shallower and not as pronounced, and so that will be a good result for us in that. And in March we got that huge kick of property tax revenue, and so we made it through the trough. We skimmed the wave tops right through there in February, and so now we're rebuilding our cash towards the end of the year. And then once we flip over to the new fiscal year, that's when we'll be talking about, okay, we can make that adjustment to our fund balance and make an allocation for capital purchases or whatever you might decide to do with that after one-time opportunity. Any questions on that? Okay, so like I said, I wanted to go talk about 24-25 budget for the most part tonight, and I'm showing you excerpts of what I spent last week talking about with the Staff Collaboration Committee on Wednesday, and then the Financial Transparency Committee on Thursday, and really bringing kind of in a way some closure to the conversation we've had about what will change with the School Finance Act from year to year. Not that it's done yet, but we have great certainty on the numbers right now, and so we can finalize those up and move forward with that being the biggest part of our revenue stream year to year. And so what I want to emphasize here is this is the original spreadsheet I showed you a couple months ago, where I was projecting a 6% growth in per pupil revenue, going from 10,091 to 10,700. Having again a pretty flat student count, but so that generating $67.6 million of total School Finance Act revenue for next year. I told you at that time that I was doing it a little bit conservative because I was concerned about the projections that were being made for local property tax revenues as a significant portion of the School Finance Act revenue, and so that's why I actually dialed it back from 10,000 to 10,700 from what the governor's budget proposal had been. I would say the good news is that the governor's budget proposal ended up being a little bit under, which was a pleasant surprise from what JBC ended up introducing. And so given that, and again, the greater certainty of it playing out, I have increased our revenue assumption then by about $25 per student. Doesn't sound a lot when on an individual student basis, but again, you multiply that by 6,000 students, and we're up at $67.8 million of revenue projection instead of 67.68. So it's about $150,000 worth of additional revenue being introduced into the modeling. What's important about that, of course, is that it then translates into what do we want to talk about in terms of compensation. Being a service-oriented business, of course, and most of our spending being allocated to staff, then how can we change that application for potential staff increases year to year? And so the original assumption was going to be that we were going to target an average across the district increase of 5.85%. And then by introducing just a few more dollars in there, we're able to push it up to a full 6% level, which, as I'll show you in the pay schedule and in the segmentation, gets us to some really nice numbers for the two major segments that we have of the district, being our licensed staff and our classified staff. Any questions? All right, just keep moving on. Okay. Mm-hmm. So with pay schedules, the existence of the pay schedules is neither here nor there, but the design of how we use them and how they are set is important. We have an intentional design of higher dollars with lower percentages and lower dollars with higher percentages. That simply means that folks that are receiving less annual income on the pay schedule, their pay raise would be a little bit a higher percentage, which would still equate to a lower dollar, but it's a higher percentage than you might see on someone on the other end of the scale that's earning a higher annual salary. The percentage increase will be lower, but the dollars increase will be higher. So we're trying to thread that needle in between just the simplistic scenarios of everyone getting the same dollar increase or everyone getting the same percentage increase, which can tend to disenfranchise one group or another. We're trying to thread that needle in between and make sure that we have a good balanced result. Also, what we're doing this year then, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, or in our past meetings, is really introducing a whole new classified schedule, because the prior classified schedule for hourly paid roles was not real functional. It was really a compilation of several individual schedules that did not work well together, and so did not give us great agility in how to handle different staffing situations we might come up with. For instance, if we start to see a pressure point of lack of supply for certain roles, we now have a greater ability to reset that within the, kind of the ranking of roles across the district, if you will. So that's the old schedule. Again, I'm not wanting you to read any of the numbers in particular, but what you can see are some of the flaws here is that there are blank spots all over the place, and if you really zoomed in, you'd see there's some that are exactly the same, sitting right next to each other, at least on the starting point, and then they go to different places, again, not giving us a great result on where to go. The revised schedule here is actually a little bit bigger, so I'm not trying to be obnoxious with that, but I am trying to create for us greater agility to work within a single schedule, so that we can do a year-to-year change in a classified pay schedule, just like we do a year-to-year change in a license pay schedule. And that means what we want to change is, what is that base point, what we call base pay. On a license schedule, is that teacher that comes straight out of college, is their first job. What is their starting pay? And then we have a schedule that makes accommodations for additional years of experience, which we equate to steps on this schedule, and then also additional education credits there. So here we have different individual ranges that start off what I would call D38 minimum wage. And for this year, it's $15.75. And then all of the cells really work mathematically off of that starting point, to make sure that it has good mathematical integrity to it. And so for next year, for the classified, what I'm proposing here is a classified D38 minimum wage of $17.50 an hour. And one of the things this also does help us is make sure we stay ahead of the Colorado minimum wage law, which is now making changes to minimum wage every single year, every single January. And we don't want to wait till January to make that change, because that's right in the middle of our budget cycle. What we really want to do is anticipate what's going to happen in January, starting July, so that we don't have to make a change in the middle of a budget cycle for what might turn out to be just a portion of staff as well.
What's the multiplier in terms of quantity of hours in a given year that we multiply by 1750 in this particular case?
Well, that's a great question, because it's not a simple answer in this case. It's not your standard 2080 full-time person. So many of our roles have different calendars with different hourly assumptions, so it can vary anywhere from a 35-day 8-hour employee to a 261-day 8-hour employee that is close to 2080. So it's really the full spectrum, from just a couple hundred hours to several thousand hours.
So in terms of a first-year teacher.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse, because this they're not on this schedule. They're on the license schedule.
Okay.
So, but for teacher schedules, I think the number is about 1,400 hours a year. If you do 182 days times 7.5 hours.
How much?
182 days times 7.5 hours. I think it's about 1,400 hours a year for licensed staff. For classified staff, again, it runs the gamut. It's all over the place.
It's 1365, so it's close.
1365. Is that close enough?
Very much.
1,400? Okay, thank you. You guys can do it faster, right? No? All right.
It's within your range of excellence, Mr. Ridgway.
I do want to thank the students for staying here. Most of the students have already left at this point, or because I dived into boredom and mission. So thanks a lot. It helps my mental health.
They can probably redo the algorithms quickly too.
Yeah. So again, $17.50 an hour, and this is a conversion. I think I've mentioned. So because we're going from an old schedule to a new schedule, people are going to be individually placed, and groups of employees will be placed on new ranges and stuff, and so that'll be part of the communication that we'll make to them as we issue notices of assignment next month. But every person's story is going to be unique this way, and once we get over this hump from changing schedules, then it'll be much more predictable, much more sensible as we move into the future. there's a lot of pages in here that go beyond that. This is the schedule. The rest of these pages really kind of prove out why the schedule is valid by looking at things like the dollar changes across the ranges. So you see, if you look at this, you see, slight steady increase of the range to range change, right? And so that's what this page then kind of validates. And here's that done on a percentage basis, very flat in general, but some, rounding issues cause some rounding percentage changes. Was your hand up?
No.
No?
I was
Okay.
pushing this
You're
away.
telling me to move it along? Was that it? No? Not that either? Okay. All right.
No, actually, what I do appreciate is before going into this meeting beforehand, when I look at these numbers,
They can be overwhelming, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So working through this, although what's the saying? Sometimes you get there faster by going slow. So appreciate it.
Yeah, so like it's really one page, and the rest of the pages kind of prove it out. What's the validity to it, and then also, and so that's probably what I want to limit on the classified schedule. Because I think if I go to the license schedule, now they will function very similar, and so we can expect kind of the same behavior, the same result from the license schedule and the classified schedule as we go forward. In terms of the license schedule, we are not proposing any significant changes to it, but I have made some specific changes to some cells that were pretty nonsensical. Up here in the upper right-hand corner of the license schedule, where we have this level 9, the MA plus 60, I have these numbers in a different color because they did not flow correctly. I think they were just, at some point, there must have been a typing error or something, or some type of mathematical error in prior years. So I've adjusted this group of numbers so that they flow across the lanes correctly more than they did in the past. Because what we saw, if you look at last year's schedule, I think you'll see this number actually lower than the number that's to the left of it, which makes no sense, and then jumping back up when we get to the doctrine. So just smoothing those out is a good target. And by the way, we only had one person in these particular cells in the current year. And then there's another small adjustment made down here in the lower left in this BA plus 45 column. And again, the remaining pages, prove out, what is the style, what is the philosophy of the pay schedule. What you see in the license schedule in particular is that you see this, as you look down, vertically down a lane through the steps, you see these increasing dollars that then have a plateau and then start to decrease at the end. And that's just a byproduct of the fact that we value the additional education, so we want the additional education to be pursued and achieved. And so the design of the pay schedule kind of encourages that, to say, okay, you can't, you believe you can be a much better teacher if you get a master's degree. And so if you just get a bachelor's degree, you're going to have a natural limitation to what your earning potential is going to be than if you pursue the additional education. And so the rest of these numbers, again, just match that. There is a page here that gives you an indication of where our staff is at and why do we want to be careful of, or be very intentional on how we make adjustments to the pay schedule. Because what we see here is our most populous column is in the MA, and our second most populous column is in the BA. And so we need to be very cognizant of how we're attracting new employees that are coming into the profession and new employees then coming to the district, as well as then balancing that against what is our mean, our median of where people are at.
I'm sure it makes sense to everybody else but me, but why is that 4 highlighted like that?
Because that is our average placement center is approximately MA step 13. So that is the fulcrum where everything around it is kind of 50% one side or the other. And so having that information then allows us to be pretty precise in how we project the budget for next year. So we know exactly how people are going to matriculate on this, what their pay change is going to be, and then we're prepared not only for the budget, but as we enter the season where we're issuing contracts and notices of assignment for this.
Question.
Yes.
Did you run, when our staff collaboration committee met?
Last week.
Right. Did they see this? Did you get good feedback, neutral feedback, bad feedback?
I think there's definitely good feedback on the classified schedule and the change to classified. You know, people have been appreciative of what the intention is for that and what that can mean for us going forward in terms of clarity. The license schedule, I think, just people, you know, it made sense to people, and we didn't really have any pushback at all. So let me, in terms of fully answering that question, let me take you to this page, which really kind of then brings it all together. What does it mean for various employee segments? And so we have our 821 regular employees across the different pay segments that we have, our staff segments that we have in terms of administrators, professional technicals, classified groups, and the licensed, and then demonstrating for them what is the average change from those pay tables by percentage, what's the average change by dollars, and how does that tie back to then that target that we were aspiring to for the change related to the School Finance Act revenue change. So if you recall back early, we were targeting that 6% level, and right now this mix targets us right at 5.99%, so we're right tight up against that desired target. And so presented this to the staff collaboration committee and also to the FTC by the way as well on Thursday, just as points of clarity, and didn't receive any concerns from that.
What about PCAC? I know we're at budget prioritization stage of the year. Did you present this to the Accountability Committee?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question, and it's a little bit different part of what we are looking for PCAC to be involved in. And
Sure.
while at the PCAC meeting, I did allude to this and just provided a clarification that we presenting the details to SCC and FTC. What we are looking for from PCAC this year is to provide input on what they think at a building level in terms of equipment and supplies and programming should be budget priorities for next year. So we're kind of taking the full budget and kind of, divvying it up, if you will, asking for and sharing specific information and asking for feedback for staff collaboration about pay rates, but looking for other areas to contribute in terms of those type of topics, in terms of what the programming is, what the staffing levels are, things like that. And so in the end, we can have good input from several different sources that covers the entire budget, but not really asking everyone to provide feedback on every aspect of it. And so what you should see, what you should look forward to in the May board meeting is a presentation directly from members of FTC and PCAC about that part of the process regarding programming and staffing and equipment and supplies and things like that.
Full meeting in May.
Sorry?
I said we are going to have a full meeting in May.
Yep.
Ron, you breathed it into existence. We'll be here till 11 o'clock at night in May.
I suspect you'll overachieve in that area.
So, pay schedules, compensation, proposed changes. And this has ripple effects in terms of what we do with things like stipends, right? There's a lot of stipends where you get it for coaching or being the student council sponsor, and those are tied to where is the base pay, where is the teaching schedule at. So setting this allows us to then carry through that work as well. Okay. So I know I didn't have a specific motion listed in there, but I think if you would be willing to take some action on adopting those two pay schedules, then we'd be able to proceed with the work going towards that end.
Any more questions or discussion on that piece before we move on?
I'll just say that's a tremendous amount of data that you have to manage there, and I'm impressed that you're able to keep track of it all, and I think we appreciate all the work that must go into this.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I have a summary question. If we look back the last 5 years, with full respect for cost of living increases and inflation and several other things that have gone up, what's the sum total of the increase of our licensed staff if we include the 6%.
I appreciate you asking that question and the consistency with you in which you ask that question. And I really need to be more prepared every time you do ask that
You
question.
know it's coming.
Yeah.
Would you like one more chance, Mr. Ridgway?
Let me just pull up something here real quick. And yes, because it is important, you know, that we're saying, hey, we're getting to $44,000 this year. That's still below market, right? We're not catching up.
It's about 7% below below
you're definitely
median,
maintaining-
and the team is performing above the median.
For sure.
But my question is not that.
Right, I know.
My question is, what's the net total increase over 5 years? If somebody was making $3,000 a month 5 years ago on a pre-tax basis, what are they earning now?
And that's why what we call base pay is always a good marker for that type of question, right? What is that starting 1/1 making proposed for 24-25 versus, for instance, what it was in 1920. So if 1920 year, that 1/1 position was 35,471, and now going to 44,000. So over the span of that 5 years,
So 9,000.
it's increased 8,500. Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're talking about 2020, not 1920, right? He said I thought you said 1920, and so I was thinking Prussian.
2019-20. 2019/20.
Gotcha.
Yes.
My apologies.
Okay. Good catch. Yeah, I'm not going back 100 plus. Yeah. The sign on the building says 1920, I think, right? So,
Okay, just so I get the numbers right, it's an $8,500 delta over 5 years. And what was the numerator?
44. Or no,
Thank you.
35,471.
So it's in
So it's
the
about 25%.
24-25% rate.
Yeah, in the aggregate over the span of time.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or are you still, while Ron's working out the math, how will this affect if that new finance formula goes into effect? I know we don't have to worry about it this year. And the way I understand it, they're talking about a phase-in, where when I looked at a graph, it showed D38 is going to see minimal funding increases during that time. We won't see cuts.
Right.
But if we're doing this, will we be able to, how likely is it that we'll be able to sustain? Well, right now, okay, I'm going to back up. I don't even know that the state's got the money.
Right.
So we've talked about that and making sure that we don't fall back into the budget stabilization, because, by the way, that's other good news is they didn't do the budget stabilization this year. But going forward in, say, 6 years, I mean, I know it's hard to predict 6 years down the road, but if we're going at this at a 6% increase and that funding formula goes into effect, what realistically do you see as pay increases?
If the formula were to go into effect as it's being presented, certainly it would definitely put a lid on what our future increases could be. Because, as you're saying, our future revenue growth would be muted almost to the point of being flat. And so getting ourselves up to this level will definitely can get to this point, and we have new money that supports that. But where we go from there, where we go after 24-25 will be part of an interesting conversation and part of some interesting work to do that. Fortunately, what's being proposed, again, is better than what was originally proposed, in particular because for us, they lifted the cost of living cap in terms of school district sides to $6,500, which put us right underneath and being able to be still eligible for cost of living funding, where the original proposals had it much lower, and so we were out. And those are the scenarios that we were going to actually see funding cuts over time. So that was a big improvement, a big change that at least got us from that cut position to kind of flat. Flat's still not great. And so how that plays out, a lot to be determined, but definitely could be something to be concerned about and be aware of as we move forward.
So the reason, knowing that that could be coming, I want to make sure that we're taking care of our staff and making sure that that increases as much as we can. So I'm in support.
Thank you. I agree, and that's why I wanted to introduce that a little bit more potential revenue growth and get that up where we could.
Or does anybody want to make a motion? Or do you need more time to discuss or more time to think? It's up to you. Everybody's nodding. Go for it.
I'd like, Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to make a motion to approve the
Classified and licensed pay schedules as presented.
classified licensed pay scale as presented.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Schwartz, second. Is there any further discussion? Nope, seeing none. Ms. Wood, would you take the call?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye?
Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Thank you, and I know you're doing great. You're with me the whole time. The only other thing I want to say in the page that I submitted was a benefit change, and I don't need to go through it at all. The details. What I'll tell you is that the benefit change that we're proposing is really pretty good. It's only at 7% total cost. Of that 7% total cost, you can basically break it into two pieces. 5% will be borne by the district, 2% would be borne by the staff. That keeps our overall contribution to employee health care in that 70-30 range in terms of 70% of the overall cost being paid by the district, 30% being paid by the staff.
On that topic, and this may not be the best time to bring this up, but are we exploring the possibility of going to a self-insurance model at some point in the future?
Very much so, very much so. And because one of the things that I don't love about how it got presented to us this year, we're part of the CEBT, Colorado Employees Benefit Trust. It's basically a large-scale version of a self-funded plan where many different entities are part of it. But they kind of peanut butter spread the increase in all the individual plans this year, and that's not, I believe, an appropriate path. So I don't know if CEBT can change that to be more specific. And what I mean is, we have 4 different plan options, and that means each of them is going up 7%. But we know from the utilization metrics that we receive that there are different utilizations between those, and so they really shouldn't all go up the same. They should go up, relative to their amount of usage. And so, which is another reason, I think, and again, it would be better for us to go self-funded. So it's definitely something that's on my to-do list.
Do you feel like there'd be any savings or just be a better ability to keep things flat year to year?
There could be savings. What I've liked best about managing self-funded plans in the past is that we really get to control the pricing. And there can be years where we can have some fund balance, because this would require its own piece of fund balance to manage a self-funded plan. And so when we have years, we get into years like recessions, and if we have years where revenue's not going up and so compensation isn't able to go up, we may be able to do something different for staff on the benefit side, right? And so having a self-funded plan really gives us a lot of ability to do, to balance these things from a year-to-year basis, depending on what our situation is at. I do think also then, it gives us a better experience because things like how we manage workmen's compensation and employee safety issues, that can then have a direct impact on the health insurance then that we end up paying. So the better we get at having a safe environment, then the lower cost we have on insurance. And so we get the direct impact of that. Right now, if we do those things, we don't necessarily see the fruits of those labors come back to us in lower healthcare rates.
And I don't know how many people are involved typically in benefits discussions, but in my position, my companies, it's been a large topic every year with 20 to 30% increases year after year.
Mm-hmm.
Completely understand that. And my current employer is on a self-funded plan, and it works great for us. We have some excellent benefits, and costs are very low. So
yeah,
definitely appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions as we're going before we wrap up? Wait, Mr. Ridgway, do you have anything else before we wrap up on this?
No, that's page 40.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? Do our students have questions? You guys are really in tune, so I'm impressed that you guys are like.
They might be future CPAs, Mr. Ridgway.
Dr. Shank. Did you have a question? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Nope, okay. Anything else we need to know before you walk away? 5 minutes or less. Oh, wait, no, you.
No, you don't want to open that door, probably.
Thank you, Mr. Ridgway. It's great work.
Thank you, Mr.
Very, very
Ridgway.
good work.
Okay, board. Item D4, approval of consent agenda.
Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? If there's anything you want to pull from consent, feel free. No? Okay. You gave me a wide-eyed look. You all right?
She's taking my job.
All right.
I was
Ms.
concerned.
Wood, would you take the roll?
Aye.
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 Aye. And then just before we wrap up, F1, future meetings. I have some ideas, but board, is there anything you would like to see at our May work session or at our May regular meeting? And I will remind everyone that those two meetings, we do need to discuss our work session briefly about the timing. Ms. Wood or Ms. Wetstein, would you like to share a little bit of info on that?
Ms. Wood, I was going to connect with you regarding the staff appreciation breakfast and lunch that are both scheduled for May 7th. We may need to just take a look and communicate back with the board about how to navigate those conflicts.
So what the conflict is, that's because that's during Staff Appreciation Week. We will be serving breakfast to our staff at one of our elementary schools, which usually runs a little bit later. So if we start our meeting, our work session at 9 o'clock, there's a potential that we may be not quite ready to start up, or some of our exec team might not want to be ready. So we can either push the time back a bit, or we can try and just squeeze it in. And that's for our work session.
It might be best if we, Ms. Wood and I, coordinate and come up with some options and then connect with all of you. We'll do our best to not impact the work session time.
Okay, sounds good.
Is the potential interest in some real estate part of the work session?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't following that.
To have our discussion about what are our different assets and our land and our. and our
Oh,
space.
yes, yes.
So let's make sure we get that on there.
Yeah.
We will also remind the board, last time at our last work session where we were together, we talked about sharing out some committee reports. So just want to keep you that on the back of your mind to, on May 7th, we'll start talking about some committee reports, and then some outside community opportunities for the board going into summertime. And I'm sure other things will come up too. But is there anything else leading into May before we adjourn that you want to put on our
Ms.
staff's
Upchurch,
radar?
could I mention a couple of items that had been brought to my attention from the board previously? We have a request to discuss mental health supports for students during May work session, as well as a follow-up discussion to our CTE tour, and bringing in Tatiana Bailey, who will speak to us about the economic and workforce development outlook. And then as well, you mentioned an update from some of our community members who have been serving on committees and some recommendations that they have to bring to the board for discussion. We also are planning an extensive HR report at the May regular meeting, as well as our annual PCAC and FTC report to the board at the regular meeting.
Will the calendar committee be prepared
Yes.
for a report? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? No? School's almost out, guys. All right, well, then, with that, we are adjourned at 7:48. I was really shooting for 7:45. Darn it.
We'll take it either way.